Joining me now on the Knicks Film School Podcast, as we have just talked for several minutes about how delirious we are from a lack of sleep. I think I'm at about 5 hours in the last 40 that I've slept. Ian Begley, the Woj of the Knicks. Hell, you're not the Woj of the Knicks. You're Ian Begley. You know, I gotta stop calling you the Woj of the Knicks because you have outgrown that, my friend. You are your own big deal.
Listen, man, I'm happy to be with you. I'm happy that we're both operating on little sleep and we can still talk about subjects that we're passionate about. The Woj title, I love it. I appreciate it. As I've said before to you, you're out of your mind, but thank you. Much appreciated. And yeah, it's, interesting times for the Knicks, obviously, because of where we are in the calendar and what we think is on the horizon. So plenty to get into. I'm excited to talk Knicks with you.
Thank you. Likewise. So there is a lot to get into. I actually just wanted to start.
Wait a second. 1 second. I need to say one thing.
Please.
Can I give you my credit card info just right now over the show, just so because I'm gonna subscribe. I'm excited about subscribing, but I figured instead of just doing it, let me just give you my credit card number.
That's a great idea.
Expiration date, security code. If I just do that, just make it easier.
Give me your social security number too.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
Everyone should subscribe. Everyone will subscribe. You do great work, informative work, and well worth the subscription fee. So everyone subscribe, and congratulations to you, and I'm excited for you.
Okay, so now you're going to make me, I had a question that I was going to save for the end, but I'm going to ask it now because you made me do that. You just had Woj, the actual Woj, on the putback, and you mentioned a story that I think you had told to me when we talked one time about him breaking something that I don't want to get into detail, but like you had something and he broke it. And you may have broken a desk. I need to ask you this because I get some people perceive me to be in like the news, not breaking business, whatever. I hear stuff now and occasionally it seems relevant and I put it out there. I'm trying to learn how to do this on the fly. You have been doing this for, I've lost track of how many years. If you've ever gotten something wrong, I don't remember it. I don't think it has happened. It is why you are the way you are and you are viewed the way you're viewed and everybody else is viewed the way they are viewed. I was going to say this at the end, but I'll ask you now, how tough is it? Because you hear probably 99% more stuff than you report. And in a day and age where if you're the first one out there with something, it's clicks, it's views, it's job security, it's all, you know what it is. You don't ever do that. You don't ever resort to it. How do you do that? I'm serious. No, because it has to be tough.
I'll say that I'll probably write 10%, maybe that's a little high, 10% of the stuff that I hear. And I do that for obvious reasons because you want to be right and you want to put out accurate information. The thing that I've kind of figured out, you figure it out every day really, is who you talk to that is legit and is a truth teller, who is right, 60% of the time, and you kind of figure that out. Who's right 10% of the time, and so you kind of learn, as you said, on the fly about who you can trust and who is less accurate. And I think that no matter, especially with social media, like being first has become so important, but being right is always sacrosanct and will always supersede everything. I appreciate you saying that. I did get a story wrong. Yes, it was wrong. I got a story wrong, and I actually think about it probably still like
You're
6
kidding
times
me.
a day, even though it happened a year ago. I was hearing that Durant was like the Nets were not as high on his list as kind of other people were talking about. And,
Okay.
I'd heard it for a few days, and then I wasn't going to do anything with it. But then someone who would have been in position to really know had relayed the same piece of information. So I thought, wow, I heard it from 5 different people who are not connected to each other at all, and now somebody who has a direct connection to Durant is saying it. So I went with it. I said something like the Nets are not the favorite for Durant, and it was like, I think maybe 3 or 4 days before free agency. So that was wrong, and it hurt, man. Like, I'll be honest with you, I never want to be wrong ever, and that's a big thing to get wrong. So that I don't take that lightly. Like, I never want to be wrong. Always want to put out accurate information. So that's where my head went when you said you never get anything wrong. Because honestly, dead serious, I still think about that one.
That's crazy. I mean, it's not crazy because I know how seriously you take this profession.
Yeah, so I think that it is so important to be right. I want to be first on everything. Like, there are probably, at least 3 things right now that I'm pretty sure are true. But like,
I love how you say that.
If I put it out there and I'm wrong, I'll ruin my reputation, ruin my credibility. And somebody else might put it out there and it might be right, and I have to live with that, and it hurts, but it's a delicate balance but you have to protect your credibility, I think, above all else.
Well, listen, I could talk to you about the profession for all night, but I'm sure our listeners would like to hear some stuff about the actual things that you're hearing. And actually
put everybody to sleep with that.
It's going to put us again, we haven't got much sleep. You have been, I think, pretty transparent, at least that's how I read it, about the fact that since Leon Rose took over the Knicks, there is not a whole lot of stuff coming out from, I don't want to say, well, I want to be careful with my words here, that there is less stuff coming out. Let's start with that. And I'm curious how you compare how it has been to report on this regime, with the understanding that obviously they have not played any games or very little games, and then the pandemic happened, and they haven't had pressers and the whole thing. But reporting on this regime versus reporting on the Mills and I guess Perry and that group, have you found it more challenging in terms of just trying to like get info, read the room type of deal? Like, where are you at on that?
Yeah, it has been more challenging because I think with previous regimes, you could kind of figure out who they are talking to, because they're not, I don't want to speak for everybody,
sure,
but more often than not, you're not, like, if you're covering a team every day, they're not going to leak you, big story, big information, because you're being impartial and you're reporting on their wins and losses, successes and failures. So they're not going to leak you big stuff. So I always tried to find the people that they were talking to. And you were able to do that previous regimes, and then you felt good about the information you were getting. And here, I mean, I'm pretty sure that Leon has told people that he's dealing with, inside or outside the organization, to be quiet. Just don't say anything. Like, if you want to do business with us, we want to do business, but we don't want our internal thoughts kind of known publicly. So I think that message has been disseminated, and it's smart on their part. It makes our jobs more difficult. But I think that finding those people who they trust and they talk to, and having those people then, talk to you, or having that conversation leak out, or a version of that conversation leak out, that's happening less and less with this regime. And it makes it more difficult to cover on a daily basis, particularly when you're not around anybody and you're sitting at home working the phones or on a Zoom call.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. That does make life a little bit more difficult, doesn't it? So you had Woj on the putback earlier. Great spot, by the way. He seems like a nice guy.
Thank you. He's great.
Yeah, he seems pretty cool. He put it, it's funny, he gets a lot of crap from Knicks fans, and yet he put it in a way that I think every Knicks fan would agree with, which is that the negative perception of the organization is not going to vanish into thin air. It's a day by day thing, and that they just need to show people that they are professionals and they could run a basketball team like professionals and make incremental improvements in the way that most teams do, draft, develop, the whole thing. To me, the way that Rose has operated is a sign of that. Do you, again, you've covered this team for so long, do you get a sense yet as to whether they are on that path to just, again, this is not rocket science, just acting competently and being respected around the league as like, okay, these people know what they're doing now?
Yeah, I think that Leon Rose takes the seat with a certain level of respect because of his previous work as an agent. And I think that helps. So I think that, he's well liked. It's kind of what you hear again and again about Leon Rose when you talk to people from different teams, even people he competed with as an agent. He's well liked. So you start there, and I don't think he's given anyone a reason to say, wow, like he's unprofessional, or wow, that was a ridiculous transaction. He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, we haven't seen anything yet. So there's no reason for anyone to throw that kind of judgment his way. So I think you start there, but I don't think you can make any kind of declaration about him or his group pushing the Knicks forward and kind of leaving those negative labels in the past before we start to see the work and see what they do and what they don't do, and if it works, if it doesn't work. So when he takes the seat from where he was as an agent, he comes in with an immediate level of respect. But as far as kind of shedding all those negative Knick labels, I think there's still work to be done, and we have to see how things play out.
You're giving me softball after softball here for these transitions. Chris Paul is a guy that carries with him some modicum of respect when he steps foot inside your organization. He's out there. I mean, I know if I could bet a few dollars on him getting traded somewhere this offseason, I would. Is it fair to say that they are in a vacuum? That they are interested in Chris Paul still, in your opinion, if the price was right?
Yes. Yeah, I think so. I think that would be. I think it's interest there, and you've written about it, and I think you're right on. I think it just comes down to what the asking price is, and it also comes down to what Chris Paul wants to do. And I think what Chris Paul wants to do is probably first on the list of hurdles to get past, and then it's the asking price. So, but I think there's interest is still there, and if there's a deal that makes sense, that the Knicks feel makes sense for them, and Chris wants to come here, then I think it would happen. But those are two big factors that, we don't know which way things are going to go on both of those fronts yet. At least I don't.
Yeah, no, for sure. I certainly don't know either. Do you have a sense of whether they're looking at him more from an on-court perspective in terms of he'll help develop the kids? He himself is obviously still probably a top 10 player. Or do you think the off-court, again, kind of getting back to that perception of the franchise, respect stuff, not necessarily like, Chris Paul is here, it's going to make us more attractive to free agents, but just, he's a member of the organization that carries with it a certain amount of gravitas? Or do you think it's kind of the whole package that intrigues them?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it really is both, because if you watch what he did last year with Oklahoma City, obviously he can still play, he can still impact winning. And he can still perform in a way that I think can really help the young Knicks in a way that it helps some of those young Oklahoma City Thunder players, particularly Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So I think it's both, and it's what you mentioned at the end of your question too, because Chris Paul is well respected throughout the league, influential member of the Players Association. He's got a powerful voice there. And his word and his opinion carries weight throughout the league. And I think that also, if he comes to New York and he likes it here and things go well, I think that can help the Knicks from the perspective of, potential. I don't even want to say like as you said, he's not going to lure like free agents here because of what he's doing on the court, but just the idea he can talk to people about how things are run, and he can tell the truth about if things are going well. He'll tell other players that, and that can only help the Knicks.
No, that would be nice if Chris Paul could say nice things about the Knicks. I'd sign for that. Moving along, the draft. We are, oh my goodness, we're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away from Thursday. Just time's flying by. Would anything shock you in terms of what they did in the draft? Trade up, trade down, stayed where they're at. Acquired an extra pick. The read I get is that everything's fluid and they're kind of going to, take it as it comes and look for opportunities. Are you getting any sense of like, oh, I think they'd really like to do this, or maybe even like this player or anything along those lines?
I have not heard that this is what they want to do, or this is what they're going to do. Like in terms of trading up, trading down, staying at 8. I haven't heard any of that. I've heard actually the opposite of that, which is different people expect them to do different things based on, conversations they've had. So I think that what I deduce from that is, at least as of a couple of days ago, all options were still being considered. Everything was still on the table, including the possibility of trading up if a trade is there to be made, trading back, staying at 8. So, but I think there are players that they like. I think that I feel comfortable in saying, you probably would say the same thing. You probably feel comfortable, excuse me, in saying that they like Devin Vassell, because I know they've done some homework there, and I think that they have a good feel for him. I don't know if
high speed Wi-Fi.
Exactly. Coach CY, Charlton Young. I love that analogy so much. But I think that's a player they like. I don't think Killian Hayes falls to them at 8 if they stay at 8. But he obviously has fans in the organization for obvious reasons. So I think there are players, if they are at 8, that they like. I don't think though that they're at a place where they've totally cut off the idea of moving up, trading down, staying put. At least I haven't heard it yet, if they've reached that conclusion.
Gotcha. A couple more, then I'm going to let you hit that pillow. Free agency is going to be, God, I don't even know what free agency is going to be, other than you'll be getting calls while you're carving your turkey. Do you have any, again, I'm asking you like unfair questions because it's this stuff is so fluid, but in terms of whether they will go years, I think we could assume they'll go years on Van Fleet should that come to transpire, which who the hell knows. But other than him, do you, cause I feel like staying fluid has, for years now, we've heard that it is a priority for the organization. Do you still think that's a priority for them?
I think 2021 is important only because that's the first time that they will have the opportunity to make a significant splash in free agency. And, Leon Rose, if you listen to what's said, sure, he was brought here to kind of right the ship and to shed off those negative, the negative reputation that the franchise has. But he was also here to bring stars to the Garden. So I think that's why I would be surprised if they handed out a large multi-year deal in a way that compromised their ability to sign a max free agent in 2021. Now, they could have a ton of cap space, so they could hand out a, $15-20 million multi-year deal and still have the room for a max player in 2021, depending on how some things shake out. But because of that next summer, I would be surprised if they blew all their cap space or blew a significant amount of their cap space on a player in a way that hampered them for next summer.
Okay. We're going to go rapid fire to finish up. And I want to preface this by saying Ian Begley is not reporting what the answers that he's about to give. I am asking him to guesstimate. All right. There are aggregators who listen to this program now, if you can believe that, which is insane to me, but,
it should be,
it's craziness.
Come on, man. And I hope aggregators pay the subscription fee to the aggregator. Come on.
I promise everybody, I did not pay Ian to say these things. He is saying these things on his own volition. Yeah, you're too much. All right. Here's what I want you to do. Give me a percentage chance. Again, it's your guess. A percentage chance each of these guys, is on the Knicks. Well, let's start with guys who would be on the Knicks at the beginning of the season. So Chris Paul, give me some odds on Chris Paul. What do you think the odds are?
I would say 40%, which I think is high. Like I'm not an odds expert. I'm not a gambler. But when I say 40%, I think of all the different permutations of things that could happen with Chris Paul. So I'm putting that at 40%, but I think those are high odds.
I like it though. I have a feeling this will be lower. Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, lower. I know there's been a lot of reporting about the Knicks and Fred, and I don't doubt that they respect him as a player, but I would just say this. I would be surprised. We were talking about big contracts, multi-year. Yeah. I'd be surprised if that was Leon Rose's first signature move of his tenure was signing Fred VanVleet, and that's no disrespect to Fred VanVleet. It's just kind of the feel that I get. I could be totally wrong. They could make a big play for him. That's just kind of my read on it right now. So if you're asking me to put a number on it, I think he ends up back in Toronto anyway. So I'm going to say 15%. Okay,
Mr. Ball, LaMelo.
Man, if we were talking in April, I had so many people telling me that they wanted to be here, but they want New York, and New York's going to make it happen. But now the way things have shaken out, I never say never. So I'll go 20 to 25%.
Okay. Two more. I guess I don't know if start the season, but let's say make it past the trade deadline. Dennis Smith Jr.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I'll say 55%, just to really go strong one way or the other.
I was about to say, it couldn't be 50. It's 55. I love it. And last but not least, of course, I'm going to ask about Frank Ntilikina. You think he had? I don't know how many lives he's gone through yet. 7 or 8 lives. What do you think the chances are he stays?
I think because if there's a Chris Paul deal, I think Knox is the most likely young player in that deal.
Okay, interesting.
Ahead of Ntilikina. So I'm going to say I'll say 60% that he is here in New York, even past the trade deadline.
I love it. Ian Begley, I'm looking at my clock, just under half an hour. I did it. Okay. You are, the absolute best. I could sit here and sing your praises all night long, but you want to get to sleep. I want to get to sleep. I can't imagine there's a soul who doesn't know where to find you, but just in case, could you remind folks where you are?
At Ian Begley, IANBEGLEY on Twitter, SNY.TV. John, thank you for having me. I love doing this. I love talking Knicks. So I appreciate your time. And again, the credit card number information, I'll just text you, I guess. If you don't want it over the podcast, I'll text you.
You can take a picture, screen it, anything you want. Text it to me. The great Ian Begley, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.